Despite not being great at them, I love video games. I also love board games. So when you bring the two together, something truly magical happens. You can play board games on your computer. And if you don't have any friends to play with you like me, well, they've got that covered too. So with this in mind, I loaded up Cluedo and set myself a challenge. I'm going to beat the AI without ever entering a room and become the world's greatest detective. I really wasn't sure how hard this challenge was going to be, so I decided to go easy on myself and set all the AI to medium difficulty. This proved to be my most fatal mistake, across the entire run. It all started off fine, with the AI making their guesses and me trying to figure out which cards each character has. I was doing quite well, ticking and Xing off my sheet with the ones they had and the ones they didn't, when I noticed something strange start to happen. You see, I discovered who had Plum and the Rope as one of their cards pretty early on. Normally, if I know who has it, then the other players should also be able to tell who has it. But not with this medium AI. Oh no, they had other plans in mind. They guessed these two again, and again, and again, until finally, by the end of the first game, they had combined guessed Plum 25 times and the Rope a whopping 30 times. Surprisingly though, they never guessed Mustard or Candlestick once. By this point, I was going insane. They were going around in circles and I didn't have enough information to make an educated guess. It would have been a 50-50 between the dagger and the candlestick, and I wasn't brave enough to try. Despite this flag that I set myself telling me which way I should have gone.
Peacock just stabbing right on in there with the dagger.
Peacock finally put us all out of our misery by making the final accusation. She guessed herself, dagger, and dining room, and then it was all over. I do find it quite funny that she got so impatient from us running around like fools that she just decided to confess to the murder to get out of her. I mean, after 68 total guesses, I think you would have done the same. I'd also like to say at this point, I ran the numbers, and the average guesses for the subsequent rounds that followed were 20.6, against the 68 of game 1. Absolutely absurd. Immediately before I went into my next try, I switched the difficulty for both Scarlet and Plum to hard, as I wasn't ready to dive back into hell again. The second game wasn't going as well for me as the first did. I was still making deductions, but not nearly quick enough. And by the time I had discovered only the room, it was already over. Scarlet had shot herself in the foot, just as Peacock did, and confessed to her own crime. This was scary for me, as it showed the power the hard AI possess. They are in another league to medium, and they weren't afraid to show it. This alone led to one of my biggest blunders. Game 3 was going amazingly well. By the time that each of the AI had made 3 guesses each, I already knew who the murderer was and where they killed the victim. It was just the weapon remaining. By this point, I developed a system for myself where I would make a guess at the start of each game, deciding what each of the relevant cards to win would be. Based on absolutely nothing, but it was a little bit of fun to see if I actually got any right. In this round, I guessed Orchid, Revolver, and Kitchen. Turns out, it couldn't have been the kitchen, as no one had the billiard room, but I was right with Orchid. So, 1 right, 1 wrong, and 1 up in the air. A 50-50 situation rested upon my shoulders. 2 weapons left to pick from. The Revolver, my trusty guess from the start, that would never let me down. And the wrench, a dodgy instrument that shouldn't even get the time of day. I had another 50-50. I stuck with my gut. I got 1 right. Why wouldn't I get another? I was wrong. My gut had failed me. And with that, Murderer Orchid roamed free. So, straight on to the 4th game, and I'll be honest, this one was a little bit of a dud. All 3 of my guesses were wrong, and Scarlet won yet another game. At this point, I knew I had to do something. If not, Scarlet would become unstoppable. So I did. I did the impossible. I started this game by getting 3 character cards in my deck, which is a blessing in one way, but is definitely going to make getting the room tricky. I placed my bets with Scarlet, Revolver, and Hall, and hoped for the best. Everyone had finished their first guesses, and I was still entirely in the dark about who had what. I did, however, know the potential cards that Plum might have. Little did I know how much this would help me in the coming moments. Orchid made her guess, proving that Plum didn't have the ballroom. Then Peacock made hers, which told me he didn't have the dining room. This meant he definitely had the candlestick, and was the only card I knew for certain someone had, outside of my own deck. Then Green came in, with this absolutely insane guess, being Plum, Wrench, and Ballroom. I knew that he had at least one of these cards, else he would have made the accusation right there on the spot. This was a chance to truly prove myself as a detective and put my skills on show. I knew that it was the Ballroom, so that was one less I needed to worry about. It just came down to another 50-50 situation. Or did it? To the untrained eye, you would think it could either be Plum or the Wrench, but we have more information than that. I can see that Orchid is potentially held by two players, as they each showed a card when a guess including her landed on them. The lead pipe and the rope were also potentially shown. With this in mind, I decided to take this potentially as gospel and wrote them off as possibilities. Now I was down to the last straw. My options were my gut, being Scarlet and the revolver, and the void, unknown variables, being Plum and the dagger. I'd already written off the Wrench from Green's guess, so I went away from my gut and picked Plum for the suspect. This would mean that 2/3 of my guesses that I made at the start would be wrong. I got flashbacks of my big defeat, the one where Orchid roamed free, because of my mistake. I could not let it happen again. And so, I let go of my pride and chose the void. Plum, dagger, ballroom. After 10 total guesses, the villain was caught, and with that, victory was mine. The impossible was achieved. Or was it? You see, I said I was going to prove that I was the greatest detective, not some half-assed one with only 2 hard AI on. I needed to dig deeper, find my purpose, become who I knew I could be. So, with a heavy heart, I ventured once more into the fray. All the AI now on hard, I was ready to accept my fate. I could tell instantly the caliber of who I was playing with went up by an insane degree. The amount of thinking and deducing I had to undertake was a mammoth task, and honestly pretty taxing. My first game was awful. I didn't actually uncover anything by the time it was over. The second was closer, with me actually getting the room this time, but there was too much uncertainty between suspects and weapons that I choked and let the win slip away. And we don't talk about the third game, okay? Good. You might be wondering, who won each of these games? Well, it turns out an old enemy made their way back onto the scene. The murderer, the fiend, the demon that is Orchid, framed me not once, but twice, and then escaped with a further win. 3 in a row. She had to be stopped. But unfortunately, I wasn't strong enough. Yet. I was now very much in the swing of things and the games were heating up. Game 9 was close. It was the longest one after the first, clocking in at 28 guesses, and I was only 1 turn away from victory. Green just happened to be before me and so beat me to it. The craziest thing from this game was the fact that I had figured out exactly what every player had in their deck. I think this is the first time it has ever happened to me, so honestly almost as impressive as getting the win. To me at least. Game 10 wasn't as close, but I was still 95% of the way there. I must have had amnesia at the time because apparently I was the murderer. Had there been a couple more guesses, I'm sure I would have had a shot.
Who killed Hannibal?
It just wasn't my time. This game was the last one I was planning on doing before shutting off my stream and calling it quits for the day. And what a game it was. I don't think I've ever played Cluedo and been as on the edge of my seat as I was here. It started off normally, with the AIs making their guesses and me interpreting things from them, until things just kind of started going my way. I kept discovering who had each card, one after another, and it didn't stop. I now knew who had the weapon, followed shortly after by the suspect. I felt good. I knew this was a strong contender for being the run. and where I would normally panic and miss something, this time I didn't. I took a moment. Scarlett had just made a guess that could have spelt curtains, but instead she didn't make an accusation. This could mean only one thing. The room card she guessed, she had. Ordinarily, this wouldn't mean anything massive, as she still has 2 more cards to be found. But we already knew her 2 cards. We also knew all 3 of Peacock's. Knowing this, and taking a second to slow down and think, allowed me to uncover the greatest bit of detective work the world has ever seen.
Wow.
The kind of things where Sherlock Holmes would have to tip his hat to me. I found the room. I was nervous now, as Peacock, Plum and Green all had the opportunity to take this out from under me before I even got a turn again. They all had access to the same information as me, so it wouldn't be impossible to think that they would get it right away. Peacock had her guess, but no accusation. Plum had his guess, but no accusation. I was sweating at this point, as I had been here before. Green took a win from me on game 9 in this exact same scenario. And then he had his guess, but no accusation. This was it. All the hours I put in, the brainpower I used, it was finally now coming to a close. Victory was just a short moment away. If I had got everything right and made no mistakes along the way, it would be over. But what if I had made a mistake? The thought lingered in my mind as I made the final accusation. Green, lead pipe, kitchen. I waited with bated breath for my fears to be confirmed or denied. And just like that, my time came. I had achieved the impossible twice and solidified myself as the greatest detective of all time.